You're disgusting. I can't even breathe in my own home anymore." Jonah's words hung in the air like poison. Each syllable a dagger. Mariah had sharpened herself. She stood frozen in their Lagos kitchen, watching the man who'd promised forever now covering his nose with his shirt collar, backing away from her like she carried plague. "Baby, please, just let me explain." "Explain what?" His voice cracked, rage mixing with something worse, revulsion. "Explain why our bedroom smells like rotting meat? Explain why I found hospital bills for procedures you said you'd never get? Explain why money paid for this nightmare." But here's what Jonah didn't know yet. What nobody knew. The smell wasn't the worst part. The lies weren't even the worst part. What Mariah would do 6 months later in that Abuja driveway, that was the worst part. And by then, it would be far too late for either of them. If you're new here, welcome to the story that'll make you question everything you think you know about love, desperation, and how far someone will go when their world crumbles. I'm Christian, and before we dive deeper into this nightmare, do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. Because what happens next, you won't see it coming. And trust me, you'll want to be here when it all falls apart. To my loyal subscribers, thank you. You're the reason these stories reach people who need to hear them. Now, let's go back to where it really started. Port Harcourt's Ogbunali district wasn't the kind of place dreams were born. It was the kind of place where dreams came to suffocate under the weight of poverty, generator fumes, and mothers who'd learned long ago that hope was a luxury they couldn't afford. Mariah Ajayi learned this lesson early. "Your sister got the looks," her mother would say, casual as discussing the weather. "You got the brains. Make sure you use them, because men don't marry plain girls from places like this." Mariah was 11 when she first understood that her body was currency she didn't possess. 12 when classmates nicknamed her Plank because her figure refused to curve the way teenage boys demanded. 15 when she started skipping meals, not to lose weight, but hoping somehow her body would redistribute what little it had into something Instagram-worthy. By 17, the mirror had become her enemy. Social media made it worse. Every scroll showed her what she wasn't. Filtered perfection, impossible curves, women who seemed to glide through life on the wings of their appearance alone. The algorithm learned her insecurity, fed her ads for waist trainers, but enhancement creams, transformation stories of girls who'd looked like her before and emerged goddess-like after. "Pretty girls survive," her mother's voice echoed in her skull. "The rest struggle." Mariah believed it. Down to her bones, she believed it. So when she met Jonah Adeyemi at a mutual friend's birthday party in 2019, his interest confused her more than it flattered her. The party was at some upscale lounge in Port Harcourt's GRA, the kind of place Mariah had only seen in music videos. She'd worn her best dress, the one she'd saved 3 months to buy, but still felt like an imposter among women who smelled expensive and moved with the confidence of people who'd never questioned their right to exist in beautiful spaces. She was nursing her second drink, calculating how soon she could leave without seeming rude, when he approached. "You've been standing in the same spot for 20 minutes, Jonas said, his smile gentle, curious. "Either you're a very dedicated people watcher, or you're as overwhelmed by this crowd as I am." Mariah looked up at him, tall, clean-cut, wearing simplicity like wealth. Designer watch, expensive cologne that didn't announce itself. The kind of handsome that didn't need validation. "Second one," she admitted, surprising herself with honesty. "Thank God." He laughed, and it sounded real. "I'm Jonah, and I was dragged here by friends who think I work too much, which is probably true. You, Mariah, and same, minus the working too much part. I'm a hairstylist." She waited for it. The subtle shift in his expression, the polite distance wealthy men put between themselves and women from her world. But it didn't come. Instead, Jonah's eyes lit up. My sister's been looking for someone new. She's tired of her current stylist in Abuja. Would you have a card? They talked for 2 hours. About everything. About nothing. He told her about his job analyzing data patterns for a telecommunications company, making it somehow interesting despite her initial skepticism. She told him about wanting to open her own salon someday, about the satisfaction of transforming how someone felt about themselves with the right hairstyle. That's not small, Jonah said seriously. Confidence changes everything. You're basically in the business of changing lives. Nobody had ever called her work important before. When he asked for her number, she gave it, half expecting him never to use it. He called the next morning. The thing about Jonah that unnerved Mariah most? He meant what he said. He called when he said he would. Showed up on time. Remembered small details from their conversations. How she took her tea, her mother's birthday, her dream location for a salon. He introduced her to his friends without embarrassment, his family without hesitation. His mother, a retired professor, treated her with warmth that felt suspicious at first. Where was the judgment? The subtle reminders that she wasn't good enough? He talks about you constantly, his mother told her during their second meeting. It's exhausting, actually. Mariah said, Mariah made me laugh. She smiled. I haven't seen him this happy in years. That should have been enough. That should have silenced the voice in Mariah's head that whispered she was temporary, that eventually he'd wake up and see what everyone else saw, a plain girl from a poor neighborhood who'd gotten lucky but would inevitably disappoint. Jonah loved quietly. He wasn't flashy or performative. He preferred home-cooked meals to fancy restaurants, movie nights to clubs, deep conversations to social media theatrics. He read actual books. He asked about her day and listened to the answer. Why do you love me? She asked him once, late at night in his Abuja apartment, vulnerability making her brave. He looked genuinely puzzled. Why wouldn't I? I'm serious, Jonah. He pulled her closer. Because you're brilliant. Because you make me laugh. Because you see the world differently than anyone I've ever met. Because when you talk about your dreams, your whole face lights up and I want to help make them happen. He paused. Is that enough reasons? Or should I keep going? It should have been enough. It should have been everything. But the voice in her head, her mother's voice, social media's voice, every cruel comment from her past, was louder than his love. Jonah proposed on a quiet Tuesday evening. No grand gesture, just the two of them on his balcony overlooking Abuja's city lights. I don't need perfect, he said, ring in hand. I just need you. Will you marry me? Mariah said yes through tears, meaning it with every piece of her heart. The ring was beautiful. His family was thrilled. Plans began immediately. Venue, guest list, date. His mother wanted to take her wedding dress shopping. His sister insisted on planning the bridal shower. Everything was falling into place. That's when the panic started. Late at night, while Jonah slept, Mariah scrolled through his family's social media. Beautiful cousins, elegant aunts, friends who looked like they belonged in fashion magazines. And then she'd look at herself in the mirror, plain Mariah from Ogbonali, about to marry into a family that smiled at her, but surely whispered when she left rooms. What if they're just being polite? What if he wakes up after the wedding and regrets it? What if you're not enough? The algorithm, sensing her spiral, fed her more ads. Transformation stories, before and after photos, testimonials from women who'd gotten small procedures and changed their lives. One account caught her attention. At Curves by DR, Sasha, a cosmetic enhancement specialist based in Johannesburg. The page was full of dramatic results, glowing reviews, prices that seemed almost too good. Minor procedure, major confidence, the caption read, "You deserve to feel beautiful on your wedding day." Mariah told herself she was just looking, just researching, just considering. But late one night, 3 weeks before the wedding, She sent a message. The response came within minutes. We can absolutely help you, beautiful. Let's discuss your dream body. When can you fly to Johannesburg? I need to go to Johannesburg for a few days, Mariah told Jonah over breakfast. My friend Chisholm is getting married there, and she want me to do her bridal hair. The lie tasted bitter, but she practiced it until it sounded natural. Jonah looked up from his laptop. That's short notice. When? Next week. I know it's close to our wedding, but she's desperate, and the money would really help with. Babe, he reached across the table, taking her hand. You don't have to justify every expense. We're about to be married. My money is your money. The guilt should have stopped her. His trust, his generosity, his complete faith in her. It should have been enough to make her confess, to tell him about the insecurity eating her alive, to let him love her through it. Instead, she smiled. You're too good to me. Impossible. He kissed her forehead. Want me to come with you? Make a little trip of it. No, too fast. Too panicked. She softened her tone. I mean, it'll be all wedding chaos. You'd be bored. Plus, don't you have that big presentation? He did. She timed it perfectly. Okay, he conceded. But be safe. And call me every night. I promise. Another lie. She booked the flight that afternoon, using money she'd quietly transferred from Jonah's account. Money he'd given her access to without hesitation, trusting her completely. The guilt sat heavy in her chest, but not heavy enough to stop her. 5 days later, Mariah sat in a dimly lit clinic in Johannesburg's industrial district, the smell of cheap disinfectant barely masking something worse underneath. This wasn't the pristine facility from at Curves by Dar, to Sasha's Instagram. This was a converted warehouse with fluorescent lights that buzzed ominously and equipment that looked older than her relationship with Jonah. Is this safe? Mariah asked, her voice smaller than she'd intended. Dr. Sasha, if that was even her real name, smiled with too many teeth. Honey, I've done hundreds of these. You'll be fine. In and out in 3 hours, healed in 2 weeks, and transformed for life. She patted a medical table covered in plastic. Trust me, Mariah wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to call Jonah, to confess everything and let him tell her she was enough exactly as she was. Instead, she climbed onto the table. Let's make you perfect, Dr. Sasha said, pulling on gloves that weren't quite clean. What Mariah didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that in 72 hours, her body would begin to betray her. In 3 weeks, her marriage would start dying. In 6 months, she'd be standing in a parking lot with a gun, Jonah's name on her lips and murder in her heart. But right now, in this moment, she just closed her eyes and prayed that pain would buy her beauty, and beauty would finally make her enough. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? This story gets darker, messier, and more shocking than you can imagine. Hit that button now, because when the smell starts and the marriage crumbles and the gun comes out, you want to be here for every twisted second. Drop a comment right now. Are you still watching? Let me know you're here. Now, let's talk about what happened when Mariah came home. Mariah came home from Johannesburg with a secret that would destroy everything. The procedure was supposed to make her perfect. Instead, it made her a ticking time bomb. And when the smell started, when that unholy stench began seeping from her body like her sins manifesting physically, it didn't just ruin her marriage. It revealed who she really was underneath all the lies. Jonah picked her up from the airport, his face lighting up the way it always did when he saw her. That smile, God, that smile used to make her feel invincible. Now it just made the guilt heavier. There's my beautiful bride-to-be, he said, pulling her into a hug. Mariah winced. The bandages underneath her clothes pressed against tender, swollen flesh. Everything hurt, a deep, throbbing ache that the pain pills barely touched. You okay? Jonah pulled back, concerned. You seem tense. Just tired, she lied, forcing brightness in her voice. Chisholm had me running around for 3 days straight. You know how bridezillas get. He laughed, taking her suitcase. Well, you're home now. I made your favorite, jollof rice and plantains. Figured you'd be hungry. The guilt twisted deeper. He'd spent his evening cooking for her, while she'd spent hers lying to him about where she'd been and what she'd done. You're too good to me, she whispered, and meant it in ways he couldn't understand. Impossible, he said again, kissing her temple. Come on, let's get you home. Home. Their apartment in Lagos's Ikoyi district. The place that should have felt like sanctuary. The place that would soon feel like a crime scene. The pain was manageable at first. Uncomfortable, yes. Worrying, maybe. But Dr. Sasha had warned her about post-procedure discomfort. Completely normal, the woman had said. Take the antibiotics, keep the area clean, don't stress it. You'll be healed before your wedding. The wedding was 2 weeks away. Mariah told herself everything would be fine. She told herself the swelling would go down. She told herself the strange warmth radiating from the injection sites was just her body adjusting. She told herself a lot of things that week. All of them were lies. Jonah noticed her discomfort, but attributed it to pre-wedding stress. Babe, you've been moving weird all week, he said on day 5, watching her shift uncomfortably on the couch. Are you sure you're okay? Just sore from all the wedding prep, she said, another lie added to the growing pile. You know how it is running around, standing in heels for fittings. Wanted to give you a massage. No, too sharp, too panicked. She softened quickly. I mean, I'm fine. Just need rest. He looked hurt, but didn't push. That was Jonah, respectful of boundaries even when his instincts screamed that something was wrong. If only he'd pushed harder. If only she'd been brave enough to tell the truth. But they were both too late for if only. It started subtly. A faint odor Mariah first noticed on day 9, when she was changing the bandages in secret while Jonah was at work. Something off. Not quite normal post-surgical smell. Something deeper. Darker. She scrubbed the area thoroughly, applied extra antibacterial ointment, wrapped fresh bandages, and sprayed perfume liberally. Problem solved. Except it wasn't. By day 11, the smell was stronger. Persistent. A sweet sour rot that clung to her clothes despite washing, that seemed to emanate from her skin no matter how many showers she took. Mariah bought air fresheners, scented candles, essential oil diffusers. She scattered them throughout the apartment like magical talismans that could ward off the truth. Jonah noticed on day 12. Do you smell that? He asked that evening, walking into their bedroom with his nose slightly crinkled. Mariah's heart stopped. Smell what? I don't know. Something weird. Like garbage? Did you leave food somewhere? Oh, she forced a laugh. Probably the trash. I'll take it out. She took out trash that didn't need taking. Checked the bathroom drains. Inspected the kitchen for forgotten leftovers. Created a whole performance of confused searching while the real source walked around in her own skin. Weird, Jonah said later, still smelling it but unable to locate the source. Maybe it's the building's plumbing. Probably, Mariah agreed. Relief and terror mixing in equal measure. I'll call the landlord tomorrow. She didn't call the landlord. She called Dr. Sasha. Hello. Dr. Sasha's voice was casual, unbothered. There's a smell, Mariah whispered from the bathroom. Door locked. Water running to mask her voice. Something's wrong. It smells like something died. A pause. Where exactly? The injection sites. And it's not going away. I've tried everything. Listen, honey. Dr. Sasha's tone shifted, protective but dismissive. Some minor drainage is normal. Your body is expelling fluids, adjusting to the new contours. It'll pass. Keep taking the antibiotics. But what if it doesn't pass? What if something's infected? Is there discharge? Severe fever. Mariah checked her temperature mentally. Slight elevation. Maybe. Nothing severe. No, but. Then you're fine. Stop panicking. Stress makes everything worse. The woman's voice hardened slightly. And remember, you signed the waiver. You agreed to the risks. If you start making noise about this, neither of us benefits. Understand. The threat was subtle but clear. Mariah understood. She was alone in this. Okay, she whispered. Okay. She hung up feeling more trapped than before she'd called. They got married on a Saturday in Lagos, at a beautiful venue overlooking the water. Mariah wore white and smiled for photos and said her vows while the smell, masked by layers of perfume and desperation, lurked underneath everything like a harbinger. Jonah cried when he saw her walk down the aisle. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," he whispered during their first dance. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe she deserved this moment, this man, this life. But the smell was there, even through the perfume, even through the flowers and the champagne and the joy. It was there, a constant reminder of her deception. Their wedding night should have been perfect. Instead, Mariah made excuses. "I'm exhausted. Can we just sleep?" Jonah, ever understanding, held her gently. "Of course. We have forever, right?" "Forever," she echoed, the word tasting like ash. She lay awake that night, Jonah's arm around her, feeling the warmth from the injection sites spreading like fire under her skin, smelling the rot that no amount of perfume could fully mask. This was supposed to fix everything. Instead, it was destroying everything. And the worst part? It was only beginning. They planned a honeymoon in Zanzibar, a week of beaches, romance, and celebration. Mariah canceled it 3 days after the wedding. "I'm not feeling well," she told Jonah, which was becoming her default explanation for everything. "Maybe we should postpone." Concern creased his forehead. "Should we see a doctor?" "No. I mean, it's probably just exhaustion from the wedding. I'll be fine in a few days." But she wasn't fine. The smell intensified. The swelling increased. And now, there was discharge. Thick, discolored, wrong in every possible way. She hid it with more bandages, more perfume, more lies. Jonas started sleeping on the couch, claiming he wanted to give her space to recover. But Mariah saw the truth in his eyes. He couldn't stand being near her. The smell had become undeniable, inescapable, suffocating. Their honeymoon phase lasted exactly 11 days before their bedroom became a battlefield of unspoken revulsion that happened on a Tuesday morning. Mariah was in the kitchen, trying to make breakfast despite the pain that now radiated through her entire lower body. Jonah emerged from the shower, dressed for work, but instead of his usual goodbye kiss, he stopped several feet away. "Mariah." His voice was strained. "We need to talk about the smell." Her hands froze over the eggs. "What smell?" "Don't. Sharp. Hurt. Don't insult my intelligence. Something is wrong, and you've been hiding it for weeks. What's going on?" She could have told the truth then. Could have confessed everything. The procedure, the clinic, the infection she suspected was ravaging her body. Could have thrown herself on his mercy and begged for help. Instead, she deflected. "You're being dramatic," she snapped, defensive. "I've had some minor health issues since the wedding. It's stress. It'll pass." "Minor?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Mariah, I can't breathe in my own home. I've been sleeping on the couch for a week. Our bedroom smells like—" He stopped himself, but the damage was done. "Like what?" Her voice was dangerously quiet. "Say it, Jonah. What does it smell like?" "Like something died," he said, and the words landed like bullets. "Like rotting meat. And it's coming from you." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. "I can't believe you just said that to me." Tears burned her eyes. rage, and shame mixing into something toxic. I'm your wife. Then act like it. His composure cracked. Talk to me. Let me help. But you've shut me out completely, and now I'm living with a stranger who won't admit something is seriously wrong. Maybe you should have married someone else then. She spat, venom replacing vulnerability. Someone prettier. Someone who doesn't disappoint you. What are you talking about? Genuine confusion crossed his face. I married you because I love you, not because... Liar. The word exploded from her. Everyone always lies. You say you love me, but you can't even stand to be near me because you won't tell me what's wrong. He was shouting now too, frustration boiling over. I'm trying to help, and you keep pushing me away. She wanted to tell him. God, she wanted to collapse into his arms and confess everything. But shame had built walls too high to climb. Get out, she whispered. What? I said get out. Go to work. Leave me alone. Jonas stared at her for a long moment, hurt and confusion warring on his face. Then, without another word, he grabbed his briefcase and left. The door closed with a finality that echoed through the apartment. Mariah stood alone in the kitchen, eggs burning on the stove, tears streaming down her face, and the smell, that cursed, damning smell, wrapping around her like chains. Jonah came home early that afternoon. Mariah didn't hear him enter. She was in the bedroom, door locked, finally confronting what she'd been avoiding for weeks. The bandages came away, revealing horror. The injection sites weren't healing. They were decomposing. Black edges around swollen, angry tissue, discharge that smelled like death. Her skin was literally rotting from the inside out. Necrosis. The word floated up from some half-remembered biology class. Tissue death. She was falling apart. A soft knock. Mariah. Jonah's voice, gentler now. Baby, I'm sorry about this morning. Can we talk? Go away. Panic made her sharp. Please. I brought lunch. Your favorite from that place you love. A pause. I was harsh earlier. I shouldn't have. The doorknob rattled. Unlocked. In her panic, she'd forgotten to lock it. Jonah pushed the door open just as Mariah scrambled to cover herself, but it was too late. He saw the bandages, the medical waste in the trash, the bottles of antibiotics she'd been hiding. His face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, shock, understanding, horror. What? His voice barely above a whisper. What is that? What did you do? I can explain. Mariah started, but Jonah was already moving past her toward the bathroom trash where she'd thrown away receipts she'd meant to destroy. He pulled one out. Read it. His face went pale. Johannesburg? Dr. Sasha Cosmetic Enhancement. He looked up at her, betrayal written across every feature. You didn't go to a wedding. You got surgery. It wasn't a question. Jonah, how much? His voice was ice. What? How much did this cost? She couldn't meet his eyes. 15,000. 15,000. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen, checking their joint account. His face went from pale to gray. You took it from our savings. The money we were putting toward the house. Toward our future. I was going to pay it back. With what money? He laughed, sharp and bitter. You haven't worked since the wedding because you've been hiding in this apartment, literally rotting, and lying to me about every single thing. I did it for us, she screamed. I did it so I'd be good enough for you, for your family, for... I never asked you to do that. His composure shattered completely. I loved you exactly as you were. I chose you. I married you. And you threw it away. Threw US away for what? Some back-alley butcher shop that's killing you. The words hung between them, true and devastating. We need to get you to a real hospital, he said finally, voice hollow. Right now. No. Panic flooded her. No hospitals. They'll ask questions. They'll save your life. He moved toward her, Mariah, you could die from this. Do you understand that? This is sepsis waiting to happen. This is, don't touch me. She backed away, protective of the very wounds that were destroying her. You don't get to care now. You said I smell like death. You can't even stand to be near me because you won't let me help. Desperation cracked his voice. Because you've built this wall of lies, and I don't even know who you are anymore. The truth of it hit them both. Jonah didn't know who she was. Hell, Mariah didn't know who she was anymore either. I'm going to the hospital, he said quietly. With or without you. And I'm calling my mother to come stay. Don't you dare. Humiliation burned through her. Don't tell your family about this. They're going to find out eventually. He looked at her with something worse than anger. Pity. Everything comes out eventually, Mariah. That's how truth works. He left the room. She heard him making phone calls, his voice low and urgent. Mariah looked at herself in the mirror. Really looked, maybe for the first time since this nightmare began. The woman staring back was a stranger. Hollow-eyed, desperate, rotting from the inside out in more ways than one. The procedure was supposed to make her beautiful. Instead, it had made her a monster. If you're still watching this, drop a comment, still here, because it's about to get so much worse. Hit that like button if this story is keeping you glued to your screen. And if you haven't subscribed, what's stopping you? The next chapter reveals what happened at the hospital and the second plot twist that changes everything. Don't miss it. The doctors used words like severe necrosis, septic shock risk, and emergency debridement. They cut away dead tissue while Mariah screamed through anesthesia that wasn't quite strong enough. They pumped her full of antibiotics and looked at her with a mixture of professional concern and personal judgment. Who performed this procedure? The lead surgeon asked Jonah in the hallway outside Mariah's room, voice low but carrying. Mariah heard through the partially open door. Someone in South Africa. I don't have details. She didn't tell me about any of this until today. This is criminal negligence. The surgeon's disgust was palpable. These injection sites show signs of contaminated materials, possibly industrial-grade substances never meant for human bodies. Your wife is lucky to be alive. Can you fix it? Jonah's voice was small, broken. We can stop the spread of infection, remove the necrotic tissue, but the scarring will be extensive, and there may be long-term complications we won't know about for months. Silence. I'm sorry, the surgeon added softer, but she's going to need a lot of support, physically and mentally. I know, Jonah whispered. I know, but did he? Could anyone really understand the weight of shame crushing Mariah's chest, heavier than the pain, heavier than the regret? Recovery was hell. 3 surgeries in 2 weeks to remove all the dead tissue. Wound care that made her scream. Medications that made her violently ill. And through it all, the smell persisted. Different now. Antiseptic mixed with rot, but still there, still marking her as damaged. Jonah visited daily, brought flowers, held her hand when she let him, but something fundamental had broken between them. I'm sorry, she said one afternoon, voice hoarse from screaming during wound care. I'm so sorry. I know, he said, but his eyes were distant, looking at her, but not really seeing her anymore. His mother came once, took one look at Mariah, and left after 10 minutes of awkward small talk. The pity in her eyes was unbearable. Mariah's own mother visited and said, I told you pretty girls survive. You try to cheat your way to pretty, and look what happened. Even her cruelty felt like love compared to the silence from everyone else. The pain medication started innocently enough. Prescribed. Necessary. But when the physical pain began to ease, Mariah discovered the pills did something more valuable. They dulled the emotional pain too. 1 pill made the shame manageable. 2 pills made it disappear. 3 pills made her forget, for blessed hours, what she'd done to herself and her marriage. The doctors released her after 3 weeks in hospital. Jonah brought her home to an apartment that felt like a mausoleum. He'd cleaned everything, removed all traces of the pre-hospital nightmare, but the ghost of it lingered in every corner. "The guest room is ready for you," he said, not meeting her eyes. "I thought you'd be more comfortable there while you recover. Separate rooms, separate lives." "Of course," she whispered. "Thank you." That night, alone in the guest room, Mariah took 4 pills instead of 2. The world went soft and fuzzy. The shame receded like tide going out. She told herself it was just for tonight, just until things got better, just until she could face what she'd become. But just for tonight became every night, and better never came. "I want a divorce." The words came on a Sunday morning. Jonah stood in the doorway of the guest room, her room now, permanently, with an expression of exhausted resignation. Mariah's drug-fogged brain took a moment to process. "What? I can't do this anymore." He wasn't angry. Anger would have been better. He was just done. "I've tried. God knows I've tried. But you won't talk to me. You're clearly using those pills in ways you shouldn't. And every time I look at you, I just what?" Her voice was sharp, defensive. "Say it. Just what, Jonah? I see what we could have been." His voice cracked. "And I mourn it. Every single day, I mourn the marriage we should have had, the trust we should have built, the life we should have shared. But you destroyed it. You destroyed us. I was trying to be good enough for you." She was crying now, messy and desperate. "Can't you understand that? You were always good enough." He finally shouted, months of restraint breaking. "But you never believed it. And now you've made it true. You're not good enough anymore. Not because of your body, but because of who you chose to become when you thought I wasn't looking." The truth of it was devastating. "Get out," she whispered. "Mariah." I said get out. This is my apartment too. You don't get to kick me out." "Fine." He straightened. "I'll leave. My lawyer will contact you about the papers." "And Mariah?" He paused at the door. "Get help. Real help. Because this path you're on, it ends badly." He was gone within an hour, packed bag in hand, walking out of her life as easily as he'd walked into it 3 years ago. Mariah sat alone in the apartment that smelled like antiseptic and failure, pills scattered on a nightstand, and felt something inside her break that couldn't be fixed by surgery or medication or time. If she couldn't have Jonah, she couldn't have anything. And if she couldn't have anything, well, she'd make sure he couldn't either. 3 days after Jonah left, Mariah found it while cleaning out bathroom cabinets. A positive pregnancy test from 2 months ago, before the surgery, before everything fell apart. She'd taken it and forgotten about it in the chaos. Or maybe she'd suppressed it deliberately, some part of her knowing it would complicate everything. She was pregnant, had been this whole time, through the surgery, through the infection, through the medications that probably shouldn't be mixed with pregnancy. Her hand went to her stomach automatically. Was the baby okay? Had the infections, the surgeries, the pills damaged it beyond repair? She should tell Jonah. Should call him right now. And no, a different thought crept in, dark and seductive. This was leverage. This was power. This was a reason for him to come back, to stay, to remember why he'd loved her. Or, if he still refused, this was the ultimate betrayal she could inflict. His child, kept from him, raised by her alone, or terminated out of spite. Mariah's mind, warped by pain and pills and isolation, couldn't think straight anymore. Couldn't separate revenge from love. Couldn't distinguish between saving herself and destroying him. She pocketed the test, didn't call him, and began to plan. 6 weeks later, Mariah sat in her car across from Jonah's new apartment in Abuja's Was-2 district. She'd been following him for days, watching him rebuild a life that didn't include her. He looked happy, lighter, like a weight had been lifted. The sight filled her with rage, so pure it felt like clarity. In her purse was the gun, purchased from a contact her cousin knew, no questions asked. Next to it was the pregnancy test, evidence of the secret she'd kept. She had a choice to make. Tell him about the baby and hope it changed everything, or end him and make sure he never forgot her. The pills made the decision easier. They always did. Mariah popped 3 in her mouth, dry swallowed them, and felt the familiar numbness spread. Tomorrow was Thursday. Jonah had morning meetings on Thursdays. Predictable, reliable, easy. Tomorrow, everything would end, one way or another. The next chapter is where everything explodes. Comment, "I'm ready," if you're still watching, and hit that subscribe button because you do not want to miss what Mariah does when she finally snaps. This story has one more twist that nobody sees coming. Mariah was pregnant with Jonah's child. He didn't know. He'd never know, because in 12 hours, she'd be standing in a parking lot with a gun, making a choice that would destroy both their lives forever. But before we get to that driveway in Abuja, before the gunshots and the screaming and the blood, we need to understand how a woman who'd once just wanted to feel beautiful became someone capable of murder. Because the descent into hell, it's paved with more than good intentions. It's paved with pain pills and paranoia and a mind that can't tell the difference between love and obsession anymore. The apartment in Lagos became Mariah's tomb. She stopped answering calls from her mother, her friends, the few clients who still wanted their hair done. The world outside existed in theory, but not in practice. What did exist? Pills, social media, and an obsession with Jonah's life without her. She created a fake Instagram account to watch him. Some random name, stolen photos, just another ghost in the digital crowd. Through this window, she watched him heal while she rotted. There he was at a work event, laughing with colleagues. There he was at his mother's birthday dinner, smiling like he hadn't just destroyed a marriage. There he was at a gym, working out, taking care of himself, moving forward like she never existed. Each post felt like betrayal, like proof that he'd never really loved her. Because if he had truly, deeply loved her, wouldn't he be suffering too? Wouldn't he be as broken as she was? The logic was twisted, but pain pills and isolation had rewired her brain into something that couldn't think straight anymore. Then on week 13, Mariah's friend Ngozi came by uninvited, pounding on the door until Mariah finally answered. Jesus Christ. Ngozi breathed, taking Mariah's appearance. Unwashed hair, hollow eyes, weight loss that looked more like decomposition. "Girl, what's happened to you?" "Nothing." Mariah, try to close the door. "I'm fine." Ngozi pushed inside. "You're not fine. You look like death. When's the last time you ate? Showered? Left this apartment?" "I don't know. Does it matter?" "Yes." Ngozi grabbed her shoulders. "Mariah, I heard about the separation, about what happened with the surgery. But you can't just give up on life." "He left me," Mariah said flatly. "He saw what I really was, and he left." "No, babe. He left because you lied to him, because you shut him out. But it doesn't have to be over. You could get help, get clean, fix this." "Fix this?" Mariah laughed, brittle and sharp. "Look at me, Ngozi. Really look. I'm scarred. I'm addicted. I smell like a corpse no matter how many times I wash. What man would want this? It's not about what man would want you." Ngozi shook her gently. "It's about you wanting yourself. About getting healthy for you." But Mariah had stopped listening. Because over Ngozi's shoulder, she could see her phone lighting up with a notification from her fake account. Jonah had posted a new photo. At a restaurant, with a woman. Beautiful. Smiling. Clothes. The caption, "Sometimes new beginnings come when you least expect them." The world tilted. "He's seeing someone," Mariah whispered. "What?" She showed Ngozi the photo. Her friend's face went carefully neutral. "Mariah, they could just be colleagues. You don't know. Look at how close they're sitting. Look at how he's smiling at her." Rage built in her chest, hot and consuming. He replaced me. Already. Like I was nothing. You're spiraling. Ngozi said firmly. This is the pills talking. You need to delete that fake account and focus on. Get out, Mariah. I said get out. Ngozi left, reluctant and worried, and Mariah was alone again with her phone, her pills, and a rage that felt like the only real thing left in her life. She stared at the photo for hours, studied every detail, the way the woman touched Jonah's arm, the way he leaned toward her, the happiness in his eyes, the same happiness that used to be reserved for Mariah. He'd moved on, forgotten her, found someone better, and suddenly, with crystal clarity warped by drugs and mental illness, Mariah understood what needed to happen. Over the next 2 weeks, Mariah built a narrative in her head that made perfect, twisted sense. Jonah had never really loved her. He'd only stayed with her out of pity. The moment she showed weakness, real, vulnerable humanity, he'd abandoned her, just like everyone else in her life had done. The surgery? That was his fault too, in a way. If he'd made her feel secure, if he'd convinced her she was enough, she never would have needed it. So really, he was responsible for everything that had happened. And now he was parading around with some new woman, probably telling her sob stories about his crazy ex-wife, making Mariah the villain in his redemption arc. Well, if she was going to be the villain anyway, she might as well play the part. The pills made the logic feel airtight, rational, justified. In reality, it was the reasoning of someone who'd lost touch with sanity weeks ago. Getting the weapon was easier than it should have been. Mariah's cousin's boyfriend knew people who knew people. Cash changed hands. No questions asked. No background checks. Just cold metal and a handful of bullets that felt like absolution. She kept it hidden in her apartment, taking it out sometimes just to hold it, to feel the weight of what it represented. Power. Control. An end to the helplessness that had consumed her since the surgery. What's it for? Her cousin's boyfriend had asked when he delivered it. Protection. Mariah had lied smoothly. Woman living alone in Lagos. You understand. He'd understood. Or hadn't cared. Either way, Mariah now owned the means to her end. She started driving to Abuja every week, parking outside Jonah's new apartment building, watching his patterns, memorizing his schedule. Thursdays, he left for work at 7:15 a.m., briefcase in hand, always pausing to check his phone before getting in his car. Saturdays, grocery shopping at 10 a.m., usually alone. Sundays, sometimes the woman from the Instagram photo showed up, and they'd leave together, and Mariah would sit in her car with her hands clenched so tight her nails drew blood. She told herself she was just observing, just seeing how he was living without her. But the gun was always in her purse, and the pills were always in her system. And the line between just looking and taking action was getting thinner every day. Mariah rehearsed it obsessively. Not just the act, though she visualized that plenty, but the confrontation before it, the speech she'd give, the truth she'd force him to hear before the end. In her fantasy, she'd approach him calmly, rationally. She'd tell him about the pregnancy, his child, growing inside the body he'd found so repulsive. She'd watch his face crumble with regret. He'd realize what he'd thrown away. He'd beg for forgiveness, and she'd deny him. If I can't have you, she'd say, nobody will. In her fantasy, he'd understand. He'd see that she'd been pushed to this, that his abandonment had left her no choice, that this was justice, not murder. In her fantasy, she was the victim, the righteous, the one finally taking control. Reality would be messy, eh? But pills and delusion don't care about reality. Wednesday night, alone in her apartment, Mariah stood in front of the bathroom mirror with the pregnancy test in hand. 17 weeks now, still barely showing, but definitely there. A life she'd created with a man who'd thrown her away. She had two choices. Tell him, Used the pregnancy as leverage to force him back in her life. Hoped that fatherhood would override his disgust. Hoped that the promise of their child would make him remember why he'd loved her. Or ensure he'd never know. Never have the chance to reject this child the way he'd rejected her. Never get to play happy family with someone else while his first child existed as evidence of his failure. The pills made the second option feel merciful. She took 3, then a 4th for good measure. The numbness spread like anesthesia before surgery. Tomorrow was Thursday. Tomorrow, Jonah would leave for work at 7:15. Tomorrow, Mariah would be waiting. She left Lagos at 4 a.m., driving through darkness with a gun in her passenger seat and pills rattling in her purse. The roads were empty. The world was silent. She felt like a ghost already, dead, but not yet willing to lie down. The sun rose over Abuja as she parked across from Jonah's building. 6:47 a.m. She had 28 minutes. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. Hollow-eyed stared back. When had she become this person? At what exact moment had she crossed from victim to villain? Maybe there was no exact moment. Maybe it had been 1,000 small choices, each one leading further from the light until darkness felt like home. A text message lit up her phone. Ngozi, please tell me you're okay. I'm worried about you. Call me. Mariah deleted it without responding. Another notification, her fake Instagram account. Jonah had posted at 6:30 a.m. Early morning, early start. Grateful for new chapters. New chapters. Like she'd been a chapter he'd finished and shelved. Like their marriage had been a book he'd closed. Rage flared, hot and clarifying. She popped 2 more pills. The apartment building door opened. Jonah emerged, exactly on schedule, briefcase in hand, wearing a shirt she'd given him for his birthday 2 years ago. He looked good, healthy, whole, like leaving her had healed him. Mariah's hand found the gun in her purse. Cold metal, heavy with purpose. She stepped out of her car. Jonah. He turned, and for a split second, she saw everything flash across his face. Confusion, recognition, concern, fear. Mariah. He took a step toward her, then stopped, reading something dangerous in her posture. What are you doing here? She walked closer, hand still in her purse. I needed to see you. This isn't healthy. He held up his hands, placating. You can't keep showing up at my home. The lawyer said. She laughed. You're hiding behind lawyers now? From your own wife. Ex-wife, he corrected quietly. The papers are filed. It's over, Mariah. Is that what you tell her? The venom in her voice made him flinch. Your new girlfriend? Do you tell her how you abandoned your wife when she needed you most? I try to help you. His voice rose. I begged you to get help, to be honest with me, to let me in, but you chose pills and lies over our marriage. I chose you. She was screaming now, tears streaming. Everything I did was for you. The surgery, the pain, I never asked for any of it. You didn't have to ask. You just had to make me feel like I was enough, and you couldn't. They stood in the parking lot, months of hurt and rage spilling out, and somewhere in the back of Mariah's pill-fogged mind, she knew this was the moment. Tell him about the baby. Give him one last chance. Maybe somehow they could. I loved you, Jonas said, voice breaking. God help me. I loved you so much it physically hurt. But you destroyed that love with every lie, every secret, every choice you made to shut me out. And I can't. I won't let you destroy me too. Past tense. Loved. Not love. Loved. Something inside Mariah broke that couldn't be fixed. Not with pills. Not with surgery. Not with anything. You're going to regret this, she whispered. He saw her hand moving toward her purse. His eyes widened. Mariah, don't. If you're not subscribed, hit that button right now. The next chapter is the finale, where everything explodes, where secrets are revealed, where justice is served. comment, "I'm here," and smash that like button. This is where it all ends. Her hand closed around the gun. Jonah saw it, his face going white. And in that moment, standing in a parking lot in was two, with the morning sun on her face and death in her purse and life in her belly. Mariah made her choice. She pulled out the gun. Jonah ran. And Mariah, 17 weeks pregnant, high on enough pills to kill rational thought, finally let the rage win. The first shot missed. The second grazed his shoulder. By the third, people were screaming. By the sixth, Jonah was on the ground. By the 12th, police sirens were closing in. She fired all 15 rounds. Not because she wanted him dead, but because she wanted him to understand, finally, what it felt like to be destroyed by someone you love. .15 bullets. 12 hit their target. Jonah Adeyemi lay bleeding in an Abuja parking lot while his ex-wife stood over him. Gun smoking, 17 weeks pregnant with his child, and finally, feeling something other than shame. But that feeling, it wasn't relief. It wasn't justice. It wasn't even satisfaction. It was pure, crystalline horror at what she'd just done. The pills wore off fast when reality came crashing in. And reality came in the form of sirens, screaming neighbors, and Jonah's blood pooling on concrete that should have witnessed nothing more dramatic than morning commutes. This is the story of what happened after the gun went silent. This is the story of consequences. And this is the story of how one woman's quest to feel beautiful ended with her becoming the monster she'd always feared. She was 0.3 minutes. That's how long it took for Mariah's entire world to collapse from the moment she pulled the trigger to the moment handcuffs clicked around her wrists. She didn't run, didn't resist, just stood there, gun dangling from her hand, staring at what she'd done. Jonah wasn't moving. Blood spread beneath him in a crimson halo, and for one terrible moment, Mariah thought she'd actually killed him. Thought she'd become a murderer instead of just an attempted one. Then his chest moved. Shallow, labored, but moving. "He's alive," someone shouted. "Call an ambulance." "He's still alive." The words should have brought relief. Instead, they brought fresh horror. What had she done? What had she done? Put the weapon down. A police officer, gun drawn, voice sharp with adrenaline. Now, the gun clattered to the pavement. Her hands went up automatically. "I'm pregnant," she heard herself say, the words spilling out unbidden. "Please, I'm pregnant." As if that mattered. As if carrying life inside her body somehow canceled out the life she'd just tried to take. The officer's face shifted, still professional, but something else underneath. Disgust? Pity? Both. On the ground. Face down. Hands behind your back. The concrete was cold against her cheek. She could see Jonah from this angle. Paramedics swarming him now, working frantically, cutting away his shirt to reveal wounds that she had made. 3 bullets in his torso. 1 in his arm. 2 in his leg. 12 total hits out of 15 rounds fired from less than 10 feet away. She'd emptied the entire magazine into the man she'd promised to love forever. Mariah Ajayi, the officer said, reading her ID, "You're under arrest for attempted murder. You have the right to remain silent." But Mariah couldn't hear the rest, because Jonah had opened his eyes, and for one impossible second, they locked gazes across the parking lot. He wasn't angry, wasn't hateful. He just looked sad, like he'd known all along it would end this way. Then the paramedics blocked her view, and she was being hauled to her feet, pushed into a police car, and driven away from the worst thing she'd ever done. Detective Amaka Okonkwo had seen a lot in her 15 years with the Abuja police force. Domestic violence cases, crimes of passion, murder attempts born from rage or jealousy or desperation. But something about the woman sitting across from her in the interrogation room felt different. Mariah Ajayi looked like she'd been hollowed out. Empty eyes, trembling hands, a body that had forgotten how to hold itself upright. Do you understand why you're here? Detective Okonkwo asked, voice measured. Mariah nodded slowly. I shot Jonah 12 times. I didn't mean to fire that many. I just couldn't stop. Why did you do it? The question hung in the air. Why? Such a simple word for such a complicated answer. Because he left me, Mariah whispered finally. Because I was rotting and he couldn't stand to be near me. Because I tried to be perfect for him and it destroyed everything. Because her voice cracked. Because I'm pregnant with his baby and he doesn't even know, and now he might die never knowing he was going to be a father. Detective Okonkwo's pen stopped moving. You're pregnant? 17 weeks. Does Mr. Adeyemi know? No. I was going to tell him today. She couldn't finish the sentence. The detective leaned back, studying her. Ms. Ajayi, we found prescription bottles in your car. Oxycodone, tramadol, quantities that suggest abuse. Were you under the influence when you shot your ex-husband? Yes. No point lying now. I took, 5, 6 pills before I saw him. And the gun. Where did you get it? I bought it. From someone. I don't know his name. She met the detective's eyes. I planned this. For weeks. I followed Jonah, learned his schedule, brought the gun. It wasn't a moment of passion. I meant to do it. Then why are you confessing so easily? Mariah laughed, a broken sound. Because what's the point of lying anymore? I've been lying for months about the surgery, about the infection, about the pills, about everything. And look where it got me. She gestured at the interrogation room. At least now the truth is simple. I shot him. I tried to kill him. Whatever happens next is just consequences. Jonah woke to white ceiling tiles and the steady beep of machines. Pain radiated through his body, sharp in some places, dull in others, everywhere at once. He's awake, a nurse called out. His mother appeared at his bedside, her face a mixture of relief and grief. Oh, thank God. Thank God, Jonah. Mariah, he croaked, voice rough. Is she? In custody, his mother said, voice hardening. Where she belongs. Don't think about her. Focus on healing. But how can he not think about her? The woman he'd loved, the woman who'd become unrecognizable, had tried to kill him in broad daylight. The baby, a doctor said later, reviewing his chart. You're very lucky. One bullet was 2 inches from your heart. Another nearly hit your femoral artery. If the angle had been slightly different, Jonah would have died. Should have died, statistically speaking. But he hadn't. He'd survived. And now he had to figure out what to do with that survival. Detective Okonkwo visited Jonah in the hospital 1 week after the shooting, when he was stable enough for questioning. I need to tell you something, she said after the basic questions about the incident. And you need to hear it before the trial. Jonah braced himself. What could possibly be worse than what had already happened? Your ex-wife is pregnant. 17 weeks. She claims the child is yours. The room tilted. That's impossible. We haven't been together since, he did the math. His face went pale. Before the wedding. Before everything fell apart. She says she found out after the cosmetic procedure, but never told you. Claims she was planning to use it as leverage to get you back. Jonah stared at the ceiling, processing. A child. His child. Growing inside the woman who just tried to murder him. What happens to the baby? He asked quietly. If she goes to prison, that depends on several factors. The court will decide. I want custody, Jonah said immediately. When it's born, I want my child. You'll need to speak with a lawyer. And Mr. Adeyemi? Detective Okonkwo's voice softened. I understand this is complicated, but you should know she's not well. Mentally. The pregnancy, the drugs, the body dysmorphia that led to the surgery. This woman needs psychiatric help as much as she needs legal consequences. She shot me 12 times, Jonah said flatly. She planned it. Followed me. Waited for me. That's not mental illness. That's premeditated attempted murder. It could be both, the detective said gently. And that's what makes these cases so difficult. The courtroom was packed. Media, curious onlookers, family members on both sides, separated by an invisible wall of anger and grief. Mariah sat at the defendant's table, 24 weeks pregnant now, belly visible even under her conservative dress. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the rage-filled woman who'd fired 15 shots. Jonah sat in the front row of the gallery, still walking with a slight limp, still carrying bullets in his body that doctors couldn't safely remove. The prosecution painted Mariah as a calculating would-be killer. They presented evidence of her stalking, her weapon purchase, her detailed planning. They showed the fake Instagram account she'd used to monitor Jonah's life. They played voicemails she'd left on his phone, rambling, threatening, evidence of obsession. This was not a crime of passion, the prosecutor argued. This was cold, calculated revenge. The defendant spent weeks planning how to end Mr. Adeyemi's life because he dared to leave a marriage destroyed by her own lies and addiction. The defense told a different story. They brought in psychiatrists who testified about body dysmorphic disorder, about how the botched surgery had triggered a mental health crisis. They presented evidence of Mariah's childhood trauma, her mother's psychological abuse, the toxic perfectionism that social media had fed. My client is sick, her lawyer argued. Not evil. She needs treatment, not decades in prison. She's a victim of predatory cosmetic surgery practices, of mental illness, of a society that tells women they're only valuable if they're beautiful. But then Jonah took the stand. Mr. Adeyemi, the prosecutor began, can you describe your relationship with the defendant before the incident? Jonah took a breath. I loved her. Completely. I thought we'd build a life together. What changed? She did. Or maybe she was always this way, and I didn't see it. He looked at Mariah, who couldn't meet his eyes. She got a cosmetic procedure without telling me. Used my money without permission. When it went wrong, she hid it. When I found out, she lied. When I tried to help, she pushed me away. And when I finally left because I couldn't watch her destroy herself anymore, she decided to destroy me instead. Did you ever feel she was capable of violence? No. That's what makes it so horrifying. The woman I married would never have done this. But the woman she became... He paused. I don't know who that person was. Do you believe she's mentally ill? Jonah was quiet for a long moment. I believe she was sick. I believe the surgery complications and the addiction made everything worse. But I also believe she made choices. Every single day, she chose pills over sobriety, stalking over healing, violence over letting go. His voice hardened. Mental illness might explain her actions, but it doesn't excuse them. The defense lawyer stood for cross-examination. Mr. Adeyemi, were you aware that my client is carrying your child? I am now. How does that make you feel? Objection, the prosecutor called. Relevance. I'll allow it, the judge said. Jonah exhaled slowly. Conflicted. I'm going to be a father to a child whose mother tried to kill me. That child will grow up knowing their mother is in prison because of what she did to their father. His voice cracked. It's a tragedy. For everyone. Do you want Ms. Ajayi to receive help? I want her to face consequences for what she did. And yes, I hope she gets help. Because whether I like it or not, she's the mother of my child. And that child deserves better than what we've become. When Mariah took the stand, she looked directly at Jonah for the first time since the shooting. I'm sorry, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't undo the pain or the trauma or the bullets still in your body. But I need you to know. I'm sorry. Why did you do it? Her lawyer asked gently. Because I was broken. Because I hated myself so much I thought your hate was justified. Tears streamed down her face. I spent my whole life being told I wasn't enough. wasn't pretty enough, wasn't worthy enough. And when I finally found someone who said I was, I couldn't believe it. So I tried to change myself into someone he could really love. And when that destroyed everything, she sobbed. I wanted him to hurt the way I was hurting. I wanted him to understand what it felt like to be destroyed by someone you trusted. Do you understand what you did was wrong? Yes. God, yes. I tried to kill the best person I've ever known because I couldn't accept that he loved me, and I still wasn't enough for myself. The prosecutor stood for cross. Ms. Ajayi, you claim you're remorseful, but you planned this attack for weeks. You took pills before executing it. You fired 15 rounds. Where was your remorse when you were pulling that trigger? Mariah had no answer, because there wasn't one. She felt justified in that moment, righteous, and only now, sober and pregnant and facing the enormity of what she'd done, could she see the truth. She'd become exactly what she'd always feared, a monster. The jury deliberated for 3 days. When they returned, the courtroom held its breath. On the charge of attempted murder, we find a defendant guilty. Mariah's shoulders slumped. She'd known it was coming, but hearing it still felt like a physical blow. On the charge of premeditated assault with a deadly weapon, we find the defendant guilty. The judge spoke next, voice grave. Ms. Ajayi, you have been found guilty of attempting to murder your ex-husband in a planned and deliberate attack. The court acknowledges the mental health struggles you faced. However, these do not absolve you of responsibility for your actions. You will serve 32 years in federal prison. You will undergo mandatory psychiatric treatment and substance abuse counseling. And upon the birth of your child, the judge paused. Custody will be transferred to Mr. Adeyemi, should he choose to accept it. 32 years. Mariah would be 60 when she was released. Her child would be grown. Jonah would have built an entire life without her. And all because she'd never believed she was enough. Mariah gave birth in a prison medical facility, guards stationed outside her room, handcuffed to the bed. A girl, 7 pounds 4 ounces. Perfect. They let her hold the baby for 2 hours. Just 2 hours to memorize her daughter's face, to whisper apologies and promises she'd never be able to keep. I'm sorry, Mariah whispered, tears falling on the baby's blanket. I'm so sorry you got me as a mother. You deserve better. You deserve everything. Then they took her away. Jonah arrived an hour later, nervous and heartbroken, to meet his daughter for the first time. She's beautiful, the nurse told him. Healthy, strong, 10 fingers, 10 toes, perfect APGAR scores. He held his child and wept. For what could have been, for what would never be. Your name is Hope, he told his daughter. Because that's what you are. Hope that something good can come from something terrible. Hope that you'll never make your mother's mistakes. Hope that love doesn't have to end in bullets and blood. Jonah stood in his Abuja home, watching his daughter play with blocks in the living room. She had Mariah's eyes, his smile, a combination of their best parts, untouched by their worst. Daddy, look, Hope called. I made a tower. That's beautiful, sweetie. The doorbell rang. His girlfriend, now fiancée, answered it. The woman from the Instagram photo that had triggered Mariah's final spiral, though they'd only been colleagues then. Grief and healing had brought them together later. Life had moved on, as it always does. Mariah received updates through her lawyer, photos of Hope, milestone reports. She wasn't allowed direct contact. Maybe someday, when Hope was older, she could decide if she wanted to know her mother. But for now, Mariah sat in a prison cell, sober for the first time in years, working through trauma with a therapist and trying to become someone worthy of her daughter's forgiveness. Some days were better than others. Most days, she just sat with the weight of what she'd done. She'd wanted to be beautiful, to be enough, to be loved. Instead, she'd become a cautionary tale. If you've made it this far, you've witnessed one of the most tragic descents I've ever researched. Mariah's story isn't just about a botched surgery or a violent crime. It's about what happens when we let insecurity poison everything beautiful in our lives. She had love, real, genuine love, but she couldn't accept it because she didn't love herself. She had a future, but she destroyed it trying to change into someone she thought she should be instead of embracing who she was. And she had a choice At every single point in this story, she had a choice. To tell the truth, to seek help, to let go. But she chose lies, addiction, and violence instead. Here's what we can learn. First, your worth is not determined by your appearance. Jonah loved Mariah exactly as she was. Her insecurity, not his judgment, destroyed their marriage. Second, lies compound. What started as one secret surgery became a cascade of deception that buried everything good in their relationship. Third, mental illness and addiction are real, serious issues that need professional help. But they don't erase personal responsibility. Mariah was sick, and she made harmful choices. Fourth, revenge doesn't heal pain. It multiplies it. Mariah wanted Jonah to understand her suffering. Instead, she created suffering for everyone, including the daughter who'll grow up without her. Fifth, social media lies. Those perfect bodies, those perfect lives you're comparing yourself to, most of them are filters, surgery, and carefully curated fiction. Don't destroy your reality chasing someone else's illusion. And finally, you are enough. Right now, as you are. The person who truly loves you won't need you to change your body, your face, your fundamental self. And if you can't believe that about yourself, get help. Real help. Before the lies and the pain turn you into someone you never meant to become. If this story moved you, hit that like button. If it made you think, drop a comment sharing your thoughts. And if you want more true crime stories that teach real-life lessons, subscribe because these stories matter. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone struggling with body image. Someone battling addiction. Someone who thinks revenge will heal their pain. You never know whose life you might change by simply sharing the truth. I'm Christian. Thank you for watching. And remember, you are enough. Stories that stayed with you? Here are more. Subscribe for weekly uploads. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. Because the next one, it might just save someone's life.